Very nice.
Right. Oh, we're starting. Kia ora koutou katoa e ho man. No mai, haere mai, ki te papatakaro, or StayMe always. Bringing it to you organic, live and dynamic. Now bring me your cups and let's dip into the healing well. We thought that today we would do a special edition. New Zealand is in level 4 lockdown, and myself and one of my divergents, TZ, is based here in New Zealand. But before we get started, let me introduce you to my amazing team. We'll start with you, TZ. Kia ora, bro.
Tēnā te mihi atu ki a koe. StayMe always, tēnā te mihi atu ki a koutou. Oku whānau whānui. Ki tēnei motu, te motu o Aotearoa. Nā te mea, ka whakaahua pēnei mo te hōtaka o StayMe always. Tēnā rau atu ki a koutou.
I must admit, I am learning. TZ is actually teaching me Māori, so eventually I'll be able to transliterate for you. But another welcome to Unme, who is situated in Australia. How are you?
I am fine, thank you. And bonjour à tous. Hallo iedereen. Guten Tag.
Beautiful. And I need to send in my repertoire of languages. Anyway, so what we decided to do, everybody, is bring you a show based on our experience at the moment being in a level 4 lockdown. And me, just fill me in. What's happening over there with you in Australia at the moment? What's the position in terms of lockdown over there?
Well, actually, we have good news to report, which is always nice to hear, right? We have restrictions easing from Friday, and I believe we still have to carry masks, but we are basically free to travel within Queensland, wherever we want to go for now. So we had a lockdown. Finishing on the 8th of August, but that finished on that Sunday at 4 p.m. So we've been free citizens kind of until now.
Oh, that's really great to hear that that's been lifted and there's a bit more flexibility. With New Zealand, we've currently gone into a level 4 that started as of, what date is today? Yesterday, 11:59 Tuesday evening. Auckland will go into a 7-day lockdown, and the rest of the country will be 3 days. So watch this space. We had an update today at lunchtime stating there was a few extra cases. So look, today this episode is based on how to remain positive in these times. We don't want to focus on the negative because that's not what we're about. We really want to be focusing on everybody's emotional wellness because that's what's important. Everybody knows what's happened last time. There was a lot of learnings from the last lockdown that hopefully you can bring into this time round. But what we wanted to do is really focus on, different ways and means to help you remain positive, how to de-stress, especially when you're dealing with children. As you can see, I've got this little sensory poppet cube in my hand, which we'll talk about shortly, but this will also aid towards your own emotional wellness as well as your children's enjoyment. So just heading over to you and me, tell us, what have you been doing to remain positive throughout your lockdown over there in Australia?
Well, actually, I have been focusing on things that I usually don't do, or that I don't get to do as much as I like. So because usually I'm quite fully booked, and I see clients outside, I see them in person. I am a lot on Zoom, and I thought by myself, well, now that I have to stay in, I'm going to read more. So before the lockdown started, I went to my local bookshop. They know me very well, and I collected a few books that I absolutely love. And I actually managed to make my way through one book. Hey, not too bad. Because reading is very good for the brain. And I have a few other things that I did as well. As you know, I meditate every day. So if people don't meditate, I would say Google what to do, and maybe go on YouTube and do some guided meditations, because that's always really good to kind of stay calm and centered, and teach your kids meditation. It's really not impossible, because my parents introduced me to meditation when I was 7. And I think it's a fantastic way. Obviously, when I was a teenager, I kind of like didn't really think much about meditation, but then I reverted back to it, and it's amazing. And one other thing, I know I have a lot to say today. One other thing that I would recommend is clean out your house, because I don't know if you know this, but clutter is negative energy. So it's the same with your brain, it's the same with your desk, it's the same with your kitchen, it's the same with your house. Declutter. And let me tell you, when you declutter and you remove things, you have space for new things to come in. And that is the same for, as I said, your kitchen, your house, your mind, everything. And by decluttering, and like seriously, not like 2 papers, moving them from, left to right, and now it's there under a book. No. I'm saying take a big bag, like a rubbish, and really bin things. Because by doing that and really removing things that you don't need, you will attract new energy into your life and more positivity.
Actually, I like that you all that, and I'm just going to grab my phone because we're going to quickly just talk about momentum brushes. So what you were describing are a couple of examples of momentum brushes that I have send out posts on my Insta, but I also actually put it out there to the audience and asked them what their momentum brushes were. And one of our viewers, Jamie Emery, so she actually sent a message through, and I'm just going to read. Hey girl, loving the new kaupapa. A few of my momentum brushes off the top of my head are tidying my house so that I can have a tidy home after work. There's something relieving about walking into a tidy home after a long day out. I also enjoying watching my kids when they are asleep, safe and sound in their beds, and also when her partner does something helpful without me asking. Now that gets my senses going. So you're right, you're absolutely right when it comes to my own house as well. And I love to make sure that everything's clean and clear. I'm pretty basic in terms of how I live in terms of clutter. But yeah, it is that whole sense of feeling there's an accomplishment, there's a feeling of relief, just like Jamie said. And yeah, it's not uncommon. I know I've spoken to a lot of my friends and family, and believe me, walking into a clean, smelling, tidy house just, I don't know, sets my senses off, just like Jamie said. What about you, Teasy? You got a clean house? A decluttered house?
Been decluttering over the last couple of days. So yeah, totally agree with you, Anmi and Jamie too. Yeah, decluttering, because when you declutter, exactly like you said, Anmi, you insinuated, you allow space for new things to come in. And new things are always exciting, novel things are always exciting. They bring an added dynamic to your space of living, your living space. And it's just like in a new toy or a new car or anything new that you're into. Like for me, it'll be a new drone. It'll be a piece of software for making music, or a new camera, or all those things that I'm into. Maybe a new harness or a new parachute to do base jumping and those kinds of things. So just alluding to some of my momentum brushes, but particularly in this time, I've been in lockdown, and it doesn't matter where you are in the world, being in lockdown, obviously it has its negative connotations, but it doesn't have to be negative, because it actually gives us more time to focus on our senses and our momentum brushes and do those over a longer period during the day. And then depending on how many days you're in lockdown for, it's an added bonus in terms of being out, having the time to really focus on fine-tuning our senses and really spending prolonged periods doing our momentum brushes, as opposed to feeling rushed because you got to work most of the day, So you try and get your gym in the morning, whatever it is that you like doing in the morning, or whatever it is like that you like doing in the evening. So you get to prolong that over a longer period during the day.
Yeah. And I suppose that there's not much of a difference. The fact is, what you were doing before lockdown and during lockdown, you can remain your structure and your routine to be the same. It just means it may look slightly different. And I like the fact that you were discussing meditation. So one of my momentum brushes that I spoke about with my audience is to pray at the beginning of every day. So I will do a prayer before I even get out of bed. Sometimes I accidentally get out. But I'll make sure I take the time to do so. And I love the fact that you also spoke about getting everybody involved, because looking at the situation, you will become stressed, but the kids will also become stressed, and the people around you, if you send off that negative energy. So it's really important to bring the kids into it. I know that's what I'm going to try and do with my children. They don't have the patience, unfortunately, or the tolerance to be able to sit there for even 5 minutes. But what that's also going to do is help them to remain calm, cool and collected. And I know one other aspect of prayer with my younger one, and we were talking about senses, our sixth sense last week. She has the ability to be able to see things, hear things and dream. And she was getting quite scared when she was seeing visions, and when she was dreaming, she would wake up screaming, and we'd go into the room and we would teach her to pray, because if we didn't get there fast enough, or if she was in a place where she was feeling uneasy, then she could automatically just switch into praying. And me, with your clients, how do you talk to them about the positive side of meditation and prayer?
Well, it's basically diverting your attention, because when you are praying, you are focused, and it's all about focus and diverting your focus, because as you know, and maybe the people that are listening don't know, but basically you create the world you live in. And that sounds very hocus pocus, but that is true. So basically the things that you think about, your thoughts create the world that you live in. And the more positive thoughts, or the more that you focus on positive things, such as prayer and meditation, because meditation involves also visualization. So does prayer, because prayer, you're praying for someone or for a situation. So you are focusing on that vision. Your thoughts are creating a vision. And when you do that, you forget about everything else that's like happening around you, like your daughter, for example. If she's having a bad vision or a bad dream, and if you focus on what you are praying for, you divert immediately direction, and you go onto the positive, instead of allowing the negative or the fear to overtake you. And yesterday I was actually speaking about that in one of my lives on Facebook, and I said, many people, they receive that information and they buy into information that's not even true, and then they just blindly, because they're so scared, like fear can become the currency of control. They allow that to control. No one can control you. No one can, unless you allow them to, or thoughts or visions. So therefore, I would say I refocus. It's completely like, you just zoom out and zoom in on something else. That's how I would describe it.
Yeah, that's right. I think too, what we also need to do as parents is, instead of reacting, and it's funny, I'm talking about this and Tizzy understands, we've just had a family situation arose over the last 24 hours, 48 hours, but it's amazing how parents are quick to react without really thinking about what they're doing, what they're saying, and the effect it has on everybody else. And what was key for me, I was one of those parents. So when my daughter was crying and screaming, "Mommy!" I would jump out of bed and I'd pull the blankets up and I'd go racing down the passageway, and I'd console her to make sure she was okay. And a lot of parents do that. And that's great. But what I felt I wasn't doing was helping her to manage that fear and those emotions. So I absolutely agree with everything that you were saying just then. And Teasy, for yourself, what other things, you know, can we do during lockdown to keep and remain positive?
Definitely prayer and meditation. Those two are two different things to me. A lot of people think that meditation is prayer and prayer is meditation. But for me, because I subscribe to the Creator, and it doesn't really matter what you subscribe to, but for me, because I subscribe to a Creator, so when I pray, I lift up all the things, I petition Him, and I pray to Him and I ask Him for all the things. So I pray for my friends, for my family, for all the people that are important to me. And then I pray for all the projects that I'm doing, the different capacities that I'm doing, like, for example, manufacturing sensory fillets, shameless plug for play-ups, through a charitable trust in China. And so I'm dropping these little nuggets. So as we start going through them in later shows, or if we do that today, just to give people some inspiration through lockdown on what you were alluding to before with online businesses, building passive incomes. Those are really great focal points to focus on when things seem to be negative. And prayer always settles me. It always grounds me, because for me, I've watched my prayer life grow exponentially, especially in the last 5 months, to a point where I see the God that I serve, Yahuwah. I watch His hand every day in my life, and I watch Him from Holy Scripture. It talks about obedience, and so I'm obedient to Him and His laws and His statutes, and then I watch the blessing happen. I watch it all just flow through my life, and then I watch it flow through the people that I pray for as well, such as you two. And then meditation is just meditating on knowledge, because that's what helps you. So we're talking about the sixth sense last week. The sixth sense helps us to differentiate between accurate knowledge and knowledge that is a faux pas. And so I was talking to you about it last night, StayMe always, where you have your psychology, your mind as a map, your senses are the radar, and your sixth sense is your compass. And so your senses, your radar, they tell you the things that you're perceiving through your senses, whether they're on or not, and then your sixth sense, your compass, will line up with it and consolidate that. And then the information that you get in your mind, whether it's being beamed or streamed live to you like this, for example, it acts like a map, and it'll tell you whether your map's on or off.
Yep. No, I totally agree with you there too as well. And looking, if you were to ask me in terms of things that I do during the lockdown, because I have two children, ages 6 and 8, they are very full on. And I'm sure every parent fully understands. So what I try and do, because I'm like everybody else, I get stressed out over the little things because I'm quite particular in the way that I operate, the processes of my systems, and just everyday life. Things to make it easier, I write a list, and everyone thinks, oh yeah, writing a list, what does that mean? That's easy. But it's not just writing a list, it's writing a list that's going to enable me to clearly map out where I can actually have some me time. And when you've got yourself and your family and you're around children, yes, you do need some time to yourself. So in my case, I just need time to recoup, get myself into a centered place so that I can feel like I can keep going. My kids are full on. They want my attention. They fight for my attention. So in order for me to stay cool, calm, and collected, what I do is I will sit with them. I give them both a whiteboard, and then I ask them to write a list of things that they want to do for the day. What we then do is we will do specific things on one child's whiteboard, and then we'll go and do specific things on the other child's whiteboard. But I will also say to my children right from the start and throughout that mummy needs her time, and this is your time. And And I think that's important, and there's nothing wrong with explaining to your children that you don't have to spend every single minute of the day with them, because it's important that you become centered and that you get back into a place of, I suppose, reality and feeling relaxed so that you can keep going. Anne-Marie, you probably had a lot of great advice that you've been able to give your clients around dealing with children and remaining calm.
But seriously, Jamie, you hit the nail on the head. Honestly, doing the exercise with the whiteboards is fantastic because it really indicates boundaries, and boundaries are key if you want to avoid chaos. Now, apparently, the human being cannot live without chaos. That's a proven fact, because part of us, that's parts integration, likes, enjoys chaos somehow. But that's the polarity of life and of everything, right? Because we need positive to have negative and to make light, because otherwise there would not be light. So the whiteboard exercise is fantastic. And I'm an only child, so I spent a lot of time with myself. And excuse the man blowing leaves here, which I think is a completely useless exercise, because we blow left to right and from right to left, and tonight they will be there again. But anyways, he's happy. That's good. It's very important that people understand that spending time with the self, even as a child, makes you grow up quicker. Because you start to reflect on yourself, you start to reflect on who you are. And it's important to teach our children that and actually reward them, even with a small ice cream, although I'm against sugar. But if they can spend an hour with themselves or by themselves, and then you often have kids asking you, but mommy, I'm alone. Well, you're never alone, because you always have yourself. And that is super important to teach children that from a very young age, because my mom always said that to me, you're never alone. You always have yourself. And that's always stuck by me. And to be honest, being bored is something that doesn't exist for me, because as what Tizi said before, there is always things we can learn. There is always room for improvement. And same with children. Puzzles are very good things to do as well. And give rewards for doing puzzles, because making puzzles, they will ask for more puzzles because it's fun. They learn, they get better. And from the 20-piece puzzle, they do a 200-piece puzzle, a 2,000-piece puzzle, a 20,000-piece puzzle. And guess what? You have more time to yourself.
I love that idea. Just write that on the list. And what about you, Tizi? Because you've obviously got children as well, obviously adult children now. But any tips and hints and ideas in terms of remaining positive, with your kids?
Yeah, I think just getting in tune with the things, with their momentum brushes. And I was talking to you about this, or we've spoken to each other about this brand that you've come up with, which is amazing, momentum brushes. That's huge. And then we've dichotomized that further. So there's momentum brushes that we do for ourselves. Then there's momentum brushes that other people do for us. And then there's momentum brushes that we do for other people. And so it can turn into a harmonious give, receive. And so when you're in relationships with people, and I'm not talking about romantic relationships, I'm talking about any capacity of relationships. People have a tendency to think when you speak about relationships that you're speaking about a relationship between a man or a woman, or if they're in a civil union or same-sex relationship, you're talking about the romantic factor. But you can be romantic in different ways, and I guess that's the beautiful thing about momentum brushes, because you're actually rendering a romantic, what's the word? You're rendering a romantic endearment towards somebody, regardless of whether it's your child, And that's why your brand momentum brush is absolutely amazing, because that's what it lends itself to. And then we're speaking about what we do for ourselves, but what about fine tuning our senses and tuning into what our children like, what they want? And that's what you were speaking to, both of you. You write it down, get them to write it down on a whiteboard, and then rather than doing momentum brushes for ourselves, we start doing momentum brushes for other people. Then we teach them that cycle, and then they go and do it to other people, and then it ends up an infinity wheel where everybody's doing it to each other. Imagine a world that was like that.
Oh, you know,
That's true leadership, honestly. That because you lead yourself and then you lead others. It's amazing.
I think that's a great idea. We are definitely going to look at developing that momentum brushes from all angles. And I think that for Teasy, actually, that's a really great point, because we're teaching the kids how to give, but also how to receive. I must admit, I'm not very good at receiving things from people, and I actually become quite awkward.
No way.
We all like to receive, but really, when you think about it, it comes to, and we've spoken about this in our previous shows, you know, the first 7 years of a child's life, and instilling the right things right from the outset, right from the get-go. And I know with my children, they love to receive probably more so than give. So in these times especially, what I try and do is keep them off the devices, and we try and do more creative and visual activities. And what we talk about is, okay, well, if we're to give somebody else in the household something, what would you like to receive? Because there's nothing wrong with asking, but at the same time, it's in the right capacity. And what I'm trying to do with my children is that if you were to receive something, let's talk about what that means. So, for example, if let's make cards for people. I know last lockdown what we did was every single day in the morning and the afternoon we would schedule some form of exercise, and that's another great way, FYI, to take up time throughout the day and to also wear out the kids. But what we did was we made cards and bracelets for friends and family. Obviously, we weren't congregating, but what we did do was that we chose the route of the street that they lived, and we dropped off little cards just to make sure that they were safe and they were looking after themselves, and we were thinking of people. So by doing that, we actually started a momentum of then their friend would then drop something past the letterbox. You know, it didn't happen often, but again, it just really instills some key values and morals within your kids without you realizing, and you get to have fun at the same time.
Very good.
Yeah. The other thing too is, and Teasy, I don't know if you want to talk about this little thing I've got here in my hand.
Yeah, I'll speak to that. So this is a sensory fillet cube, and I was going to say obviously, but it's not obvious to a lot of people out there. So what this is, the word sensory means that it appeals to our senses, all of them. And so what it does is it actually acts as a de-stressor, and it's born out of a charitable trust that we have here in New Zealand called Amante Charitable Trust. And Amante, anybody who knows that word, it's actually Spanish for lover. And so it's alluding to the positive messaging of loving on people, which is what Momentum Brushes is all about. So it fits perfectly, the branding fits perfectly. And what it does, it's good for emotional wellness. It's good for mental well-being. And then obviously because of the sacred geometric shape, the neon colors, all scientifically proven to be stress relief factors for children, for autistic children, especially with the raised numbers on the back of the panel that's opposite to the branded panel. And then obviously adults, actually inadvertently, we found out that adults like it just as much as the kids, because of the mere fact that adults, our breadwinners everywhere all over the world, they're at work and they've got the stress of coming home, to kids, providing for a family. And so we decided to create this for the sacred geometric shapes, the neon colors. And then obviously, because you can pull it apart, so then you get the social interaction, because it's 6. So you can have 6 people, and then you're all interacting, talking like we're talking now, and popping this sensory piece, the sensory feel it piece, which amalgamated turns into a sensory feel it cube of sacred geometric shape. So it's all those components that contribute to wellness, spiritually, emotionally, and then mentally. And then obviously it's under the brand that was instigated by Amante Charitable Trust, which is now called Playops Open and Play.
Cool. And actually, I've got one in my hand, and as much as it looks like a toy, the reality is everything that you did say is absolutely true. So this is actually being tested in one of the autism clinics, and we received feedback from a couple of friends and family members that have children with autism. My kids have them, so even kids in general, they absolutely love it. Believe me, it takes, my children spent hours playing with this thing. Their cousins come over. It's a great way to integrate. And I suppose too, at the same time, what people don't understand is that they're actually learning as well. And as Tuzi mentioned, they've actually got raised numbers at the back. So they play, they're able to actually use their imagination to create games. I know that they pull out a piece of paper and they start trading. So you're actually teaching them business from the early ages and how to negotiate. Whether it's actually good negotiation skills or not, well, that's another story. But the reality is you're actually teaching them quite a lot of different skills and developing their skills in something as simple as this sensory feel it. Anne-Marie, do you have any other suggestions in terms of games or recommendations for parents?
Absolutely, Jamie. Well, what you can do with this cube as well is if you take it to pieces in the evening and you divide it between the members of your family and they take it to sleep, and then when they come in the morning, you put it all together, depending on, you don't need to have 6 people in the family. If there is 3, everyone gets 2. People pick colors. Obviously, this can turn into a little bit of a disaster, but the next day they can choose their color, right? And then you bring it back in the morning and you sit together with no cell phones and you say what you're grateful for. So for every piece that you contribute, you need to say one thing that you are grateful for, and it needs to change every day. So it makes it fun for kids as well to like, whoa, bring their piece and then piece it together to a cube and then say what they're grateful for. So
that's an absolutely great idea. Absolutely. And these are all the different connotations in terms of how we all have different psychology, the ideas, the creative ideas that we come up with, and it lends itself again, momentum brushes to our world and to our children's worlds, our families' worlds, and our friends' worlds. And yeah, absolutely conducive.
And then I have another game that, because now with lockdown, we have more time, which is great. And some people are angry, but I'm super grateful because we have an amazing, and Tizi was talking about it before, as in, and we were actually talking about it before we started this episode. This is the perfect occasion to educate yourself if you want to create an online business and reduce your stress levels, to go out and work for someone. You can work for yourself and make way more money than when you go out and work for somebody, because you will always have to put up with what they tell you what to do, while you can be your own boss. That's one thing to think about. I'm just going to throw that out there. So we have also a game, and it's from Robert Kiyosaki. You can Google him. He has written a book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And he also has a game that you can play with children. I mean, maybe not as young as yours, Jamie, but probably already from maybe 11, 12 years old, you can play that. And it's called Cash Flow. And it teaches what are good investments, what are bad investments. And you need to get out of the rat race. So that is, and the rat race, what we mean with the rat race is actually go to work for somebody. That's the rat race, for a set amount per week or per month, depending where you live. And so to get yourself out of the rat race and start investing in like property and learning about what is good. And you actually have like a cash flow sheet that you fill in with a crayon, so you can rub it out. And you really learn like, oh no, this is like the first time you play it, you're like, oh, I want to buy this and this and this. And then turns out it is total rubbish. And then you learn what is a good investment and what is a bad investment. So once you've played it a couple of times, it's still challenging, let me tell you, even for me. I love investing and I love reading about all these things. To get myself out of the rat race takes sometimes much longer than I want. So it's a board game. You can order it online. I'm not sure if they have it here in Australia or over in New Zealand. I'm pretty sure they do, but you can order it from Singapore. It's not expensive and it's a fantastic game and it goes for hours.
Oh, actually, I'm going to look that up myself. I do have that book, so I'm going to go and find it. But that's a really good point, actually, and I love the fact that you brought up about the business and creating your own income, potentially a passive income. So that's something I think we can definitely talk about over the next couple of days. What we're going to do is, and again, our time is up. Oh my gosh, it's not fair. I want to keep talking, and I'm sure Unme and T, but we can't because I've got to go back to work. And so does
So do I.
Actually, we all have to go back to work. So what we're going to do is we are going to do some 30-minute sessions every single day leading up until the end of lockdown here in New Zealand. And we're going to be talking about emotional wellness. We still have our usual scheduled show, 6 Cents, that'll be showing on StayMe Always, the Healing Well YouTube channel on Saturday. But stay tuned. We will put it across our socials so you can jump on board, get some great tips and hints around how to stay sane during lockdown. But yeah, look, we want to hear from you. So definitely drop us all a message on our social. Definitely share this link with anybody that you feel may need a little bit of help or want a little bit of support. But really quickly before we go, TZ, tell us, where can we get this from?
So you can buy that from my website, playups.co.nz. All the links are going to be in the description of the show on YouTube. So there'll be a playups.co.nz/ the page. I think it's Sensory Feel It for that one. Also, I'm doing my own YouTube show, my TZ Created show. And on that, I'm going to have food wellness bags and also my hoodies, play-ups, and then I'll show you guys the crowns, because the crowns are so if I just have to get this on here. So it says, I don't know if you can see, but it's got open and play.
Oh, kind of. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So the whole deal with open and play is it's positive messaging, and it's for mental health and emotional wellness, because we want people, it's like you alluded to when we first started the show, where you declutter and then you get new things coming. What do new things usually come in? New boxes, new packets. So open and play, it gives the enthusiasm of something new, like a baby, new life.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's what open and play is all about.
Amazing.
Well, look, I don't know about you two, but I'm just gonna play with this and pop all these pieces. So thank you so much to everybody. I'm getting distracted, so I better wrap this up. Thank you again to everybody. Stay tuned, stay safe, and we will see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Ngā mihi mahana kia koutou.
Bye.
Bye.